What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Didn't do a post-game video simply because I stayed on later with you guys during the live stream yesterday, and I stayed on to watch the abysmal New York Mets at 7 o'clock. Otherwise, I would have done a post-game video. So tomorrow, I'll probably do a live stream, around this time, 6 p.m. or so, after I get an opportunity after dinner and work to talk about the prior game and the week ahead with you guys in further detail. Now that we've had a couple of days to digest it, hopefully we get further injury news that we'll talk about throughout this video. And I got to reach out to Mike Too Nice. We didn't do the thing last week. Maybe he'll come on for that stream if the time permits for him. If not, I'll come on solo and I'll talk with you guys. So really looking forward to that. But in this video, we got a lot to cover today. Also wanted to briefly recap yesterday, talk about, going ahead, going into the future with this football team here as we got the Green Bay Packers on deck in London. Get your tea ready. Get up at 9 a.m. because the 3-1 New York Giants are getting set to go. And it feels nice to be able to say that the New York Giants are 3-1. Yes, as a fan, do I recognize we beat the Chicago Bears? Do I recognize that we beat the Tennessee Titans, who are actually pretty good, by the way, and beat the Carolina Panthers? Absolutely. Have I upped my expectations to this point? No. I still have us at 7 wins. That's what I had at the beginning of the year. Maybe my opinion will change as the season gets going. If we are competitive against the Packers or ever beat them, forget about it. All right, I'm going to be through the moon, and I'm sure you guys will be as well. Really looking forward to seeing how this team could build, though. That's still the way I look at this team this year. It's a rebuild year. This team, I just want to see progressively get better week to week. What are some of the good things and encouraging signs of this team so far through 3 weeks? We start on the defensive side. As simple as that. This defense has been immaculate. Yes, I understand there are flaws. We gave up the 3rd and 20. We gave up the 3rd and 12 to Dallas. I understand all that. That's what's going to come with having a defense as aggressive as Wink Martindale's. Yes, I recognize we've gone up against Ryan Tannehill, Baker Mayfield, not Justin Fields, not the best of quarterbacks, not the best offenses. I understand all that as well. But the fact of the matter is, through 4 weeks, through a quarter of the season, the New York Giants defense ranks 2nd in overall red zone defense, only surrendering, I think it's 35% of the time a touchdown when a team gets inside the 20. And they have the 2nd best 3rd down defense in the National Football League, in which they're surrendering a 3rd down less than 30% of the time through nearly a quarter of the NFL season. And we will certainly be put to the test this week, both on offense and defense, going up against the Packers. I know they've looked sluggish, but it's still Aaron Rodgers. You got to respect that man as the signal caller for that football team. And on the other side, they're the team that's actually the only team ahead of the Giants in terms of 3rd down defense. Teams are only getting first down 24% of the time. And we know thus far this year, the New York Giants offense has been the Achilles heel of this football team, much like I expected at the start of the year. Hopefully it progressively gets better as we go along. Right now, we've had a lot of injuries in that wide receiving core. Hopefully we get a couple of back this week. There were some encouraging signs on that front today. Giants also made a couple of roster moves. As far as the offense goes, there's been progress there as well. But I kind of point a lot more towards Saquon Barkley than anything else. We haven't seen the passing game become electric yet, but what I will say is we've had open looks in the passing game, but you could argue that could be attributed to Saquon Barkley as well. But thus far this year, the New York Giants, I think, ranked 19th in yards and 22nd in points, which doesn't sound great, but by comparison, the last 2 years, they were 31st in both categories, both in 2020 and 2021. So we're seeing progress on both sides of the ball thus far through the 2022 season, which would only make sense due to the fact that the New York Giants are 3-1. And if you want to bash them for the teams that they're beating, you can only beat who's on your schedule. And this is a Giants team who in the past would not have beaten these teams. And yesterday, the best word to describe that win for me is gritty. It was gritty as hell with all the injuries that the New York Giants had. Brian Daboll had that team coming out ready to compete from the start. The offense looked much better in the first half, something that we have not seen through the first 3 weeks. They scored their first half touchdown all year. The offense definitely looked better. And yes, did they use Daniel Jones a lot more in the running game? Yeah. But I expected that. And it's not to say, and I think Brian Daboll said it in his post-game press conference as well, a lot of those were not design runs. They were play-action bootleg rollouts that gave Jones the opportunity to either throw the ball or run the ball. And he took what the defense gave him, which is why he rushed for nearly 70 yards in about 3 quarters worth of play and scored the Giants alone 2 touchdowns in that football game. So I think overall, despite the fact that he threw for like 80 yards in about 3 quarters, Daniel Jones still had a good performance, a very good performance for the New York Giants. If you take away the Darius Slayton drop, which should have been a 60-yard touchdown, he would have had about 100 140 yards passing, and he probably would have ran for close to 100 yards had he played the entirety of that game. Of course, he has the injury. We'll talk about that throughout the live stream as well. He continues to play pretty good, though. The offensive line, the run blocking was terrific. We all know we still struggle in terms of pass protection, and Saquon Barkley continues to carry this offense. The defense, I mean, the individual standouts, we said it yesterday, but it really needs to be hammered home. Dexter Lawrence was incredible yesterday. I saw a crazy stat from Mark Staple today. I forgot exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of a guy that weighs over 300 pounds. He had the most pressures like ever since it's been recorded from within a game. He either had 6 pressures or 8 pressures. I forget. He had 2 sacks. Regardless of the statistics, Dexter Lawrence was a force start to finish, which was a very encouraging sign, especially when you go back to the prior week when the Dallas Cowboys definitely kept him in check in that department. And he did that without Leonard Williams in the lineup. You think about what that could be with Leonard Williams back in the lineup for the New York Giants. Really exciting things to come. Thibodeau looked better in his second game. Hopefully he gets better as we go along. Same can be said for Azeez Ojulari. Potentially may not play this week, though, with the injury. But let's jump into all the news from today. The Giants also made a roster move that I'll talk about, and there's some rumors regarding a potential guy coming back to the New York Giants that I'm sure a lot of people are excited about. First, we're going to touch on the most important position on a football team. In addition to Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor also suffered an injury. So right now, it leaves New York Giants scrambling what they're going to do with the quarterback position. That'll be a topic of conversation all week. But this is coming out from Ian Rappaport. This was the best news of the day for the New York Giants. Giants quarterback Daniel Jones, who left Sunday's win with an ankle injury, is considered day-to-day. Source said, well, tests will continue. There is some optimism that he plays, which is good. That means Saquon Barkley could play running back. Of course, Saquon Barkley down the stretch yesterday over the last drive or two, they were running the Wildcat, right? It brought back memories of Tony Sparano while he was with the Miami Dolphins with Ronnie Brown and obviously Ricky Williams. And that's what they had to do because they didn't have any quarterbacks left after Tyrod Taylor went down with the injury. Whether or not Daniel Jones plays, that remains to be seen. I think the Giants will be cautious. We saw that Dable did that this past week. But if he could play, I'm sure he will, and I'm sure we'll get further updates. But regardless, that's really good news. Even if he doesn't play this week against the Packers, you have to think there's a very good possibility that he'll be back against the Baltimore Ravens. But, of course, we're all hoping, at least most of us, I can't speak for everyone, but most of us are hoping to see Daniel Jones out there. He's had 2 good, tough, gritty performances, at least in my opinion, the last 2 weeks. Let's jump further into some of the news of the day. This is the rumor coming out from Jeremy Fowler. Not really a rumor. I actually think this is the second time that there's been a recorded visit of Landon Collins showing up to the facility for the New York Giants. Reunion in the works. Free agent safety Landon Collins is visiting the New York Giants on Monday per sources, returning to the place where he made 3 Pro Bowls and All-Pro team. Collins would give New York's defense a hybrid linebacker safety option if they reach an agreement. And whether or not that agreement will be reached, I don't know. We obviously signed Klein that I'm going to talk briefly about as well right after I talk about Collins. Whether or not that has an effect on whether or not we'll bring in Collins, I'm not sure. They may bring in both of them. Maybe they'll sign Collins in a week or two. What do I feel about it? Listen, I was very outspoken, at least on my channel, when Landon Collins became a free agent. I did not think that Dave Gettleman should bring him back. It had nothing to do with Landon Collins as a player. I like Landon Collins. I do think in a certain role he could be a very good player from within the NFL. I think he got a lot of hatred that he didn't necessarily deserve. That's just my personal opinion, due to the fact that he had no help around him in that secondary. He looked great in 2016. We all remember that. And, when he was one of the contenders for Defensive Player of the Year. And then we had a ton of injuries to that secondary the following year. And they asked Landon Collins to do things that he's not necessarily best at. Do I think he could fit this scheme? Absolutely. Now, whether or not Landon Collins has lost a couple of steps, that I don't know. I don't watch him every week. He hasn't played this year. And I'm sure the New York Giants looked at that when they brought him in for a visit. But even if he's close to his former self, Landon Collins could certainly fill a big, big role for this New York Giants defense. Even if it's in terms of a guy that's situational, would add a guy that you could play up in the box at the linebacker position that you could send as a blitzer, could drop back at coverage. I would think he's equipped to at least cover, slower tight ends out of the backfield. We all know he wasn't the best at coverage, but we could certainly use an upgrade there at the linebacker position in the coverage department. And he's a guy that definitely, we all know, is a hard hitter and a guy that I would think would fit very well in this Wink philosophy, sending blitzers, which turns us to AJ Klein. The Giants brought him in as well. Right here, this also coming out from Fowler. The Giants are signing free agent linebacker AJ Klein per source. Longtime NFL starter, has had several suitors, but reunites with GM Joe Schoen and head coach Brian Daboll from Buffalo days. Most likely starts in the practice squad with a quick call-up, much like Smith last week, who the Giants brought in at the linebacker position. And this makes sense, right, in terms of why they'd be interested. He was with Buffalo the last 2 years. The other thing, at least from what I've read from Buffalo fans on Twitter, a little bit of research that I did, he is known to be a good blitzer. Again, you would think that would fit what Wink is looking to do. We're very thin there. Don't expect AJ Klein to be fleet of foot. Don't expect him to drop back in coverage, but he's probably a guy that the Giants look at as a guy that is a rotational piece, maybe a guy that they could use in certain packages, and a guy that has valuable depth, who they're familiar with. Obviously, they like. He was actually formerly drafted by Dave Gettleman. But as you know, if you're a big football fan, Dave Gettleman's understudier was Bean, who later became the GM with the Carolina Panthers, who Joe Schoen learned under. So he may have had a lot to do with that, which is why they brought him over to Buffalo to begin with. They obviously like the player, and I'm sure Schoen does too, which is why he's here with the New York Giants. It's a minor move. Don't expect him to start. May not even have a role this week, much like Smith didn't. I think the first week that we brought him in, but he could be a guy that grows a role as the season gets along. So they bring in a 31-year-old veteran that hopefully can help in some capacity for this New York Giants defense that certainly up to this point has been getting the job done. In terms of further injuries, as you know, if you watched the game yesterday, the New York Giants had a plethora of injuries, way too many injuries for this football team. It wasn't just Daniel Jones. Got this off bigblueview.com. Wanted to give them a quick shout out. In terms of the positional groups, the wide receivers today, this according to Brian Daboll, it doesn't look like Golladay will be able to play this weekend, according to Daboll. However, Daboll also said that both Toney and Robinson were making progress and that the Giants would see where they are on Thursday. Could be coach speak. Don't read in too much into any of this. Of course, Daboll doesn't want the opposition to know who's going to play and who's going to not. That's why I wouldn't read too much into Daniel Jones either. He may play. That remains to be seen, but I just don't think they're going to rush him out there if they don't feel like he's 100% or at least very close to 100%. We saw what Daniel Jones looked like a couple of years ago when the Giants probably rushed him out there before they should have when they were trying to compete for the playoffs. And I'm sure Daboll's going to take a conservative approach, but if he's 100%, I'm sure he'll be good to go. Same thing with the wide receivers. So it doesn't sound like Galladay's going to play. Toney and Robinson hopefully are getting closer. We certainly could use him, especially without Golladay. Not that he's done much, but we become even thinner at that wide receiver group if both Toney and Robinson don't come back. I would definitely take that trade-off, though, if you lose Kenny Golladay and bring those two back. I think those are probably the two best receivers on this football team right now. Not that that's saying a whole lot. In terms of the offensive line, a major question mark is going to be Evan Neal, of course, suffered an injury this past week. Daboll said that both linemen regarding Neal and Glowinski would be okay. So I'm going to assume based off of that, they're probably going to play this week, which is great. Evan Neal, I thought, definitely took a step in the right direction this past week. Of course, he wasn't going up against the same defense, wasn't going up against that caliber of an edge rusher, and the Giants didn't throw nearly as much as they did against the Cowboys. But nevertheless, I don't think he surrendered to pressure. Looked a lot better this week, which is a good sign, bouncing back off a horrible performance against the Dallas Cowboys. Going further into the defense, the edge defenders, Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari. Sounds like Kayvon's is minor. Expect him to play. Ojulari, not so much. Thibodeau is another player who Daboll said would be okay. Daboll said the Giants would see where he and Ojulari are at on Wednesday. So we didn't go into further detail about Ojulari. Ojulari, I think, came out of the game yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. So that remains to be seen. I would lean that he's probably going to play, but that's far from a sure thing. Kayvon, I would expect to play. And then in the secondary, Aaron Robinson, expect him to be out. Of course, suffered an injury after coming back from the appendectomy. I don't think we're losing much, though. I'll say that because Morrow looked really good in terms of his replacement, but obviously we lose some depth. This coming out, Daboll said that Robinson, who just returned from an appendectomy, is unlikely to play this week against the Packers. Love is in concussion protocol. And if Love's not going to play, obviously you figure Belton's going to get more looks, and maybe the Giants call up a couple of, guys, from the practice squad in terms of the secondary. Going up against Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be tough, especially with some of the injuries we have. Didn't get an update on Leonard Williams in that injury report. Not too sure where he stands. Hopefully he's back this week. That would definitely help this defense tremendously going up against Rodgers. Otherwise, you're going to be asking Dexter Lawrence to do a whole lot of work in the middle by himself. We'll see how that all pans out, but Leonard Williams is going to be incredibly valuable to this defense this year. Really looking forward to it. Hopefully Jones is back sooner than later. As far as the rest of the injury report goes, I mean, I'm begging to see Kadarius Toney. I'm begging to see Wan'Dale Robinson. AJ Klein seems like it's a good minor pickup. Nothing crazy there, of course. And we'll see what may happen with Landon Collins. I'm sure a lot of you guys will be really excited for him to reunite with this New York Giants football team. And being that it's not going to cost anything, I think it could make sense for this scheme if he's even near the player he once was. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.